Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to another episode of HBReviews, where I will take a fighting game movie, break it down, and then let you guys know at home whether or not this film is actually worth watching, or worth throwing into the fiery pits of hell. Now, from what you can tell about the title and the screen behind me, we're going to be tackling the first ever live-action depiction of Tekken. Now, this film was made in 2009 by a man called Dwight H. Little. Now, this man has had experience working on films such as Halloween 4, the bad one, and Halloween 5, the one that was somehow worse, and Free Willy 2. That's not good. This might actually be the worst one yet. Now, this film was written by a man called Alan B. McElroy. That's a really funky name to say. Now, this writer wrote Halloween 4 and worked on Resident Evil and the Wrong Turn movies. Wow, are we in for a treat today? So yes, from what you can tell in the production area, this film is kind of a mess. So I think that just leaves us with how the film actually is. So I guess, you know, let's open up this can of crap. Now, the film opens up in pretty dramatic fashion, with there being a shot of the entire planet, and the narrator goes off with pretty much 50 sentences per second. And what I mean by this is that the amount of information he's throwing at you in the first few minutes of the film is in fact extremely jarring. It's a lot to handle in the opening segment of a film. Star Wars does it well because although it shows it in text, here it's just thrown at you non-stop. So let's break down what he says so you guys can get a better understanding of, I guess, what he's talking about. Now, in the opening, they bring up something called the Terror Wars, and apparently this destroyed all the governments around the world, and that's it. We are given no context to how this happened, why it happened. We just have to buy into it. It's really not how you should open a movie. Now, when governments fell, corporations took control of continents. I'm not entirely sure if that's how the apocalypse really kind of goes. Now, we do get a few action shots here of what we can only presume are the Terror Wars. Again, no context is given. We at this point are only left to presume. Now, like I mentioned before, with all the governments gone, companies around the world have taken control of continents, and they've been split into 8 different ones, with the United States apparently falling to Tekken, not the Mishima Zaibatsu. Is it that difficult to say Mishima Zaibatsu? You can tell that they didn't really care for the source material straight out of the door, and we're also given brief context that the King of the Iron Fist tournament takes place at least once a year here. Now, we're introduced to the protagonist of the film, Jin Kazama. Now, with the change of scenery, Jin has changed drastically from his game counterpart. Instead of somewhat being this noble hero, he's a scavenger, a moron, and a fuckboy. You're going to see why. Now, we get a nice little chase sequence to open up the film and introduce the character, as Jin has apparently got something extremely valuable in him and people are after him for it. Also, thumbs up for whoever decided to put Sick Puppies into the opening of this film. Good song choice. Why does everyone in films have like stormtrooper-like accuracy? At least stormtroopers can get away with like having a dome on their head. Now, the scavengers are killed by this film's version of the jackhammers, who aren't robots. It's just really bland soldiers wearing very fancy headgear. Holy shit, did they've run out of budget for the CGI in this film already. So I'm just gonna put this out there for you guys. In the games, Jin is of Japanese descent, and he's been raised in America in this film. So why on earth is he British? I know the actor's British, but why cast someone who can't disguise their own accent? It's pretty bad casting. Now, Jin gives his buyer the item he wants. Now, apparently, like, due to how oppressed people are, some coffee and an orange apparently costs like an arm. How do people eat on a regular basis and survive? It's fairly ridiculous, to be honest. We are then also introduced to Heihachi Mishima and Kazuya, who do not really hate each other. You can tell the writer doesn't really know anything about the source material here. Now, we learn that Kazuya wants to become head of Tekken, but Heihachi refuses to pass the mantle down to him, as he says his son isn't quite ready. Now, we cut all the way back to Jin so that we can meet Jun Kazama, Jin's mother, obviously. Now, the interaction is very brief, and Jun basically telling him that he shouldn't ever think about entering the Tekken tournament, because, you know, when you tell your kid not to do something, he's totally not going to do it 9 times out of 10. Now, Jin, being the understandable son he is, throws a bitch fit and leaves the house to more or less go off and bone some girl. Our heroes, ladies and gentlemen, our hero. Now, we learn that the thing Jin stole from the very beginning of the film in fact belonged to Tekken. So Tekken would come after him and everyone that was affiliated with him, including his mother, June. Oh shit, we're gonna see June kick some. Jesus Christ, she can't fight for shit. Sorry, but there's just something extremely funny about this shot. Now, June is killed in a massive explosion, and Jin basically swears vengeance against the Mishima Tekken. Now, in order to get closer to the Mishimas, he would enter the Tekken tournament. You know, the very thing his mother told him not to do.
It's not your fault.
Of course you would say that. He was busy stuffing you with his devil gene. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. Now we do meet this film's version of Steve Fox, who is apparently balding. That's what Steve looks like. That isn't what Steve looks like. Now despite that, this actor is actually pretty damn good. Now Steve is holding an open fight night, where he's giving people the opportunity to defeat martial law in order for them to have the chance of entering the Tekken tournament. Now as you would expect, Jin does enter and battles martial law. And the choreography in this is actually pretty decent. It's nothing essentially too outstanding and has problems with certain shots, but overall it's a pretty damn good fight scene. Now Jin in fact does hold his own for quite a long time, but eventually is overpowered. Now as he's about to lose, he gets a flashback to when he was training with his mother. Apparently this gives him the willpower to win, and he defeats martial law. By the way, just saying, I hope you really enjoyed that flashback sequence, because we get to see that every single fight scene. My god, did that look bad. Now Steve is interested in Jin's fighting capabilities, and as such in fact becomes his coach for the Tekken tournament. I don't even know if they're calling it the King of the Iron Fist tournament anymore, it just seems to be Tekken. Now we cut back to Kazuya, where he's apparently burning Anna and Nina Williams, who are sisters. Not stepsisters, biological sisters. I'm pretty sure this comes under some form of incest. What has this film become? Now I extremely do like the scene after this. You see the tension between Heihachi and Kazuya rise to an all-time high, and it's actually a great way of kind of setting up this betrayal, as let's face it, a betrayal is going to happen in this film. Now we are then briefly introduced to everyone that's participating in the tournament, and I do actually really like this scene, as many of the costumes here are actually extremely accurate to the game counterpart. I think that's a really nice thing they've done with this. The accurate costumes isn't something you necessarily see in most video game movies, so to me this is a bit of a treat. Oh yeah, just saying, the one character that doesn't look like his gaming counterpart is Miguel. Like straight up, like this guy, you know he's just gonna be a punch bag. Now Jin meets them all and starts creepily hitting on Christy Monteiro. Oh yeah, just gonna put this out here as well. Christy Monteiro is Brazilian. Again, bad casting. Now the tournament does get underway in a place that I can only kind of call the Tekken Dome, in which we are once again reintroduced to all of the characters and the main cast. Oh yeah, just putting this out there, Nina Williams looks more plastic than her dildo collection. So the tournament finally kicks off and Jin goes toe to toe with Miguel, and it's a fairly decent fight. The one thing that really does damage this battle is the fact that there's too many scenes put in here to make Jin look cool. It's evidently very forced and very lame. It utterly kills the pacing of the fight. Now again, like before, Jin nearly loses until flashback. Again, this gives Jin the ability to insta-win, in which he nearly kills Miguel. Apparently this gives Christy the hots for him, and later the two go to a club and start making out. It's really dumb. Didn't know I was watching Dead or Alive again. I do have to admit, I really do like the dance sequence in this, just because I find it funny because Jin looks like he's extremely uncomfortable the entire time. He's like that awkward kid at the school dance. I will say that I don't buy the whole romance between these two characters. Jin has done nothing but creep on her the entire film, but apparently to Christy this is okay, and doesn't mind having his tongue rammed down her throat. Now during this whole dogshit sequence, Kazuya learns that Jin is the son of Jun Kazama, and also in fact his son. And I'm very happy that they at least incorporated this into the film, as it adds an interesting dynamic into the Mishima family that this film is sorely lacking in. Now when Jin returns back to his apartment, he's ambushed and beaten by Nina and Anna Williams, but Christy's able to intervene and they get away. Now after this they meet up with Steve, in which Jin learns from him that his mother used to participate in the Tekken tournament. Now despite being in obvious danger, Jin continues to participate in the tournament. We also get an extremely nice fight sequence between Jin and Yoshimitsu, although at some point Yoshi drops his sword, which feels completely out of character for him, and trades it in for a staff for a little while. It's not like the biggest problem in the world, it just feels extremely out of character. Now during this entire fight sequence, Kazuya grows tired of how his father has been treating him and forces his hand to gain control of Tekken. Now as he is about to be defeated, guess what? Another flashback. Now Jin is able to defeat Yoshimitsu, and this results in a massive alarm going off. Now Steve, realizing that something isn't quite right, attempts to get Jin out of the Tekken Dome with the assistance of Christy, but they are eventually found and captured, in which they are then thrown into holding cells. They are all then confronted by Kazuya, who reveals to all of them now that in order to survive this tournament they must kill each other, as it's apparently good for his TV ratings. One of the best characters in Tekken has just become a ratings whore. Fucking kill me now. Now despite these apparent state-of-the-art holding cells, Jin alongside Christy, Heihachi, Steve and Raven are able to leave this facility, and Jin is told by Heihachi that he's in fact the son of Kazuya, making making him an heir to the Tekken throne. Now they're all once again captured, and Steve is in fact sadly killed off. And so is Heihachi, apparently.
Heihachi Mishima is dead.
You see, that is a nice Easter egg to the game. Tekken 5 if anyone is interested. Now back in the Tekken Dome, the tournament more or less now does become Mortal Kombat, and Dragunov is killed in like the most PG-13 way ever. Now Jin does go toe to toe with Bryan Fury, and once again we get this nice little nod with this pose. God damn it, Jin. Now this fight is actually pretty good, but again, you probably never saw this one coming. Flashback. The climax of this fight is so over the top, I actually find this very funny. Now with Jin being the new champion of Tekken, Kazuya understandably isn't happy, so goes out of his own way to try and kill the boy, and nearly does until Christy creates a distraction, which gives Jin just enough time to defeat him. Now as much as he'd like to kill his father, he does in fact spare him, despite, you know, cutting him across the stomach with an axe. So I guess happy ending? Jin leaves the Tekken Dome to return home. I guess he kind of forgot it blew up at the beginning of this movie, and for some reason now the Jackhammer unit see him as their leader. Did Kazuya die off screen for that to happen? This just doesn't make sense. We also get this really pointless narration at the end of it that also doesn't really make any sense, and the film then just kind of ends. And that's really the Tekken movie, guys. And you know, despite its massive flaws, it's an okay movie. Where it's evidently extremely weak is the writing. It really does shit on its own source material, and honestly I can tell that the writer's only seen the trailer for Tekken 5, and when he has played the game he's only ever played as Jin. Now it's a real shame because there's so much source material that could have been used here, and instead it's filled with scenes like Jin and Christy being together. You could remove this entire segment out of the movie and have filled it with something that was much better, possibly something elaborating about the Terror War, which is a plot hole, one of many that I will talk about. Now the writing isn't the only problem, it's the portrayal of certain characters. Jin is probably one of the most unlikable protagonists I've seen in a while. He's whiny, a Mary Sue, and a fuckboy. I really did not like this portrayal of the character, especially when the flashbacks seem to be like his comeback tool. Now Heihachi and Kazuya are an odd one for me. It's great to see the two characters interact, but Kazuya should have been participating in the tournament in order to like gain control of Tekken, or at least enter it to show to Heihachi that he's ready to become the head of the company. Now in terms of choreography in this, it's very hit and miss. There are some fight scenes that are really good, and some that are fairly poor. The weakest I would say is probably Christy versus Nina. That fight is extremely brief and very poorly put together. Now I do like the fact that they use somewhat wide shots in this film. You get a better display of what's going on completely. However, there are some shots in here that are completely unneeded, and it's zoom-ins of certain movements. They serve to be somewhat pointless and is kind of dumb. But apart from that, the fight sequences are fairly solid. They're not the best, mind you, but you can tolerate them. Now there's a tiny bit of CGI in this film. I like to think that they were very self-aware of how Dead or Alive was and knew how bad the CGI looked at times, so they intentionally did not put a lot of it in there, which is actually really good, because the shots of CGI we did have here did look kind of clunky. Now there are some plot holes in this film that do need to be answered. One, and I keep bringing this one up, what on earth were the Terror War? Not a single person elaborates on it the entire movie, and it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. Why did June never tell Jin about her participation in the tournament? That is something that is completely dropped the entire movie, and does leave more questions than answers. And is Jin now the head of the Mishima Zaibatsu, as after he defeated Kazuya, the Jackhammers seem to be loyal to him? Is Kazuya dead? Am I missing something here? The movie just doesn't explain enough, and that's the problem. There are so many pointless scenes in here that takes away from other interesting aspects of the film, and this is its massive flaw. Now cons aside, there are some pros to this film, although they are very few. The acting for what it is actually pretty good. I really did enjoy the portrayal of Kazuya, Heihachi, and Steve, as they're all done by fantastic actors, despite, you know, not really seeming like their gaming counterpart. Now the main reason I really like Steve in this film is he sort of becomes this father figure for Jin. He has actual character progression, so it's really nice to see Steve here. Kazuya, another great character, again with character progression, from going from this kind of underling son to this kind of tyrannical, jealous father. He's a really good character, and I do like this, although it does feel somewhat rushed since the film is only about 90 minutes long. Now Heihachi is played by the same actor who played Shang Tsung. I can never stop praising this actor, because he just nails every single role he's in. He did a fantastic job of portraying Heihachi, Although it's not entirely accurate. Every time he was in a scene, he was methodical, threatening, you really believed everything that he was saying. Now in saying that, there are two weak members of the cast. Christy Monteiro, that one should be fairly obvious, and she's only kind of there to be like the love interest for Jin. And well, Jin, the character who I didn't like, not only just due to the fact that he was portrayed really bad, but the actor really didn't do a great job here. Don't get me wrong, in certain scenes I found him extremely believable, but there were some scenes where his brain just kind of shut off and he was just saying words into a camera. It wasn't at all believable what he was saying, and that was kind of my problem with him. He's a good actor, but I think he stepped into shoes that were far too big for him, and as of this film, he wasn't quite talented enough to carry an entire movie, which is a shame because like I said, he's actually not too bad. Now I have two things to praise. The costumes in this film are absolutely fantastic. A lot of them are accurate to the gaming counterpart, and it's something that's extremely rare to see in a video game movie, so I absolutely love that. Another pro is the music. It sits into each scene extremely well, and although it's not extremely thunderous, its presence is welcome and it fits each scene extremely well. So props to the composer, he did a fantastic job. Now overall, Tekken 2009 is an okay movie. It's not a solid film by any means because there's definitely a lot of flaws here, but if you're a hardcore Tekken fan and you're interested, you may get some form of enjoyment out of this. If you're not, then this film may not be for you, because for the most part it's not really a Tekken film. It's a bit of a senseless action film, just with the Tekken name slapped on it. And that's my one main problem about this film. The big names in here don't act like their game counterpart, and it wouldn't be very hard for them to do so. It's just that the writing's that bad and it really does go against its own source material. But yeah, this pretty much wraps up the entire review. Now we're going to do it much like before. We're going to use the Hat of Doom to ultimately decide which movie I'll be talking about next. I'll be picking two and put them in the comments below, so whichever one gets the most thumbs up ultimately will determine the next episode. Okay. Alright. I'm not going to say it, I'm just going to put it on the screen now. Focus. I have a really bad feeling that you guys are going to give that the thumbs up. Really bad feeling. And the other one we have... oh! It's Legacy again. So it looks like it's back to King of Fighters vs Mortal Kombat Legacy. Like I said, use the thumbs up option in the comments below and we'll find out which one I'm gonna die from. I really want it to be Legacy. Just give me this one, guys. I hope you've all enjoyed this video, as I really like doing these reviews. Now I would like to say in the future, since I'm covering some DC oriented stuff, would any of you be interested in seeing me tackling any DC animated or like live action movies? Just let me know in the comments below. Also, if possible, let's try getting this video to about 500 likes. That's a great way of supporting myself and this channel. Now, as always guys, please comment, like, subscribe and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care and I will see you all next time.